Choosing a weapon in Siege can be a daunting task. Every gun has their own recoil patterns, attachments, and damage outputs that can be overwhelming for new players to understand. So in today's video, I shot every pistol in the shooting range, and I'll be using the data I collected to rank all of them from worst to best. Where will your favorite pistol show up? Well, make sure you watch the video all the way through to find out, because some of these placements will surprise you. Now, starting out the video with the worst pistol in the game, we have the 44 Magnum. This is going to be a very controversial placement, but hear me out. This gun on paper is pretty solid. It has a high damage of 54 at and above 10 meters. It has a magnification sight, which no other pistol has, and it has a magazine size of 8 bullets, which isn't terrible. However, this pistol has one main issue that makes me want to place it this low, and that is its ridiculously high recoil. Pistols are meant to be a weapon you use in sticky situations when your primary fails you, so you need it to be consistent. However, the 44 Magnum is the opposite of that. You can easily miss your shots with it, and its damage doesn't make up for its ridiculous recoil. You'd pretty much be better off picking any other pistol on this list as your secondary, because at least they'll be consistent. Now, moving to the 20th spot, I decided to have the PRB92 reside here. The reason for this is because it only deals a measly 42 damage, and it would be okay if other stats on this gun were good, but sadly, that just isn't the case. It only has a magazine size of 16, which is worse than a lot of the future options, especially considering its super low damage. And its recoil may be easy to control, but that isn't much to ask for, considering low recoil is kind of a hallmark of the pistol weapon class. So overall, it has to be down here in the 20th spot. There isn't anything making it stand out here. Now, in the 19th spot, we have another surprising placement, that being the P12. I honestly was expecting the P12 to be a lot better than it is. I don't know if it's because the gun is on a lot of popular operators or if it's just the sound of the pistol, but I always thought this was one of the best pistols in the game. However, after testing it, this definitely isn't a good option compared to other pistols. The P12 only deals 44 damage, and its magazine size is only 16 bullets, meaning that the only two stats that are important for a pistol seem to be lacking on this firearm. So realistically, there isn't much else to say other than I was kind of surprised with the outcome on this one. In the 18th spot, we have basically a carbon copy of the P12, that being the P9. This gun is literally just the P12 with an extra bullet in each magazine and 1 extra damage per shot. That's it. That is literally the only difference. Because pistols don't have a lot distinguishing themselves from one another, like recoil patterns, this will become a recurring issue throughout the video. But since the P9 technically is marginally better, I have to put it here in the 18th spot above the P12. Coming in at the 17th spot, we have the Gush 18. I decided to put the Gush this low for one reason, that being its low damage. The Gush only deals 44 damage per shot in the 10 to 12 meter range, which is pretty abysmal compared to other pistols we will see in this video. The whole gimmick of the Gush is its ridiculously high ammo count of 18 bullets per mag. However, this rarely matters in a pistol since you're only using it to finish someone off after you run out of ammo, meaning you rarely need a whopping 18 bullets. So I really can't justify putting this any higher because it sacrifices damage for an insignificant stat like magazine size. After the Gush in the 17th spot, we have the 5.7 USG in the 16th spot, which is a very similar pistol to the Gush. On paper, the Gush may seem better than the 5.7 because the Gush does have a damage of 44, while the 5.7 only has a damage of 42. However, since both pistols will only 3-shot opponents anyways, the damage difference doesn't really matter as much. And since the 5.7 has a higher magazine size of 20, it just makes sense to have it right here in the 16th spot. Moving to the 15th spot, we have the USP 40. This is a decent step up compared to the other options I've listed so far. The USP has a damage of 48, meaning that you could 2-shot someone if they have taken any damage at all throughout the round, and it has a decent magazine size of 13, which the magazine size on the USP may not be as good as previous options like the Gush or the 5.7, but I think the extra damage makes the trade-off worth it in the long run. Overall, this is a pretty average option, and there really isn't much else to say about it. Now, for the 14th spot, we have a very similar weapon to the USP, that being the MK1 9mm. This is quite literally the same gun statistically as the USP, except it has 1 extra bullet in a magazine. So since they are so incredibly similar to each other, the MK1 has to go here in the 14th spot. As for the 13th spot, this is a little bit of an interesting one. This is because I have the RG15 holding up this position. I thought the RG15 was a little bit of a harder weapon to rank since on paper the stats are kind of terrible, with it only dealing a damage of 38 and having a magazine size of 16 bullets per mag. However, the thing that separates this weapon from the rest below it is its sight. The weapon sight on this thing is amazing. It allows you to easily hit headshots, and it also allows it to be a menace for getting dirty swamp peeking clips. Realistically though, a sight can only carry a weapon so far, and that is why I'm leaving it in the 13th spot. Moving past the RG15 in the 13th spot, we have the P10C in the 12th spot. This gun is in a very similar situation to the RG15. That is because the P10C is carried by the sight it has available. The stats on the gun aren't great. However, they are better than the RG15, which is why I have the P10C one placement above it. The only difference between the two guns being the 2 extra damage provided by the P10C, which is why it's here in the 12th spot. After the P10C, we have the SDB 9mm in the 11th spot. This is just a solid handgun all around. It deals a nice 47 damage, and it has a good capacity of 17, which is way better than all the previous options we've talked about. The thing I love about the SDP 9mm is that it doesn't sacrifice anything like the previous weapon. It just is average on all fronts, allowing it to be versatile in a lot of situations. However, the guns following up the SDP just simply outclass it, which is what holds the gun back from being any higher. Now, the handgun in the 10th spot is arguably one of the most iconic handguns in all of Siege, and that, my friends, is the French revolver. The reason this gun is so iconic is because of its high damage of 78 and its satisfying sounds. However, when you try to use this thing competitively, you'll begin to notice some issues. First of all, the gun has the lowest magazine size of any weapons in this video, with it only being able to hold 6 bullets per cylinder. Then on top of that, it has extremely hard recoil to control, making it difficult to consistently hit your shots. These two factors significantly hinder the use cases of this firearm, which is what truly holds it back. However, due to the gun having stupid high damage and it being the catalyst for some of the most iconic clips of all time, I have to put it here at the halfway point. As for the 9th spot, I decided to place the P229 here. This is because of the gun's solid statistics. It deals a solid damage of 51, and it has a pretty average magazine size of 13, allowing the P229 handgun to be a versatile and secure option to fall back on. You can rely on this gun to get the job done if you find yourself in desperate need of help. However, there isn't anything that the P229 offers that other pistols can, so it has a hard time separating itself from the rest of the pack, which is why I placed it slightly above average, because there really isn't anything crazy here. Ironically, the gun in the 8th spot is the P226, and just like their names, there's just a slight difference between these two guns statistically. The P226 has a larger magazine size by 3 bullets, and it has 1 higher damage per shot. So technically the P226 is superior to the P229, but since they're basically the same gun, I put them one placement apart. Now for the 7th spot, we have the 1911. This is another handgun that surprised me throughout the testing process. I never remembered this handgun being this good, but throughout my testing, it actually was one of the best firearms. This gun deals an extremely above average 55 damage, allowing it to 2-shot 2 speeds in close range. However, the thing stopping it from being any higher is a low magazine size of 9 it possesses. At the end of the day, magazine size doesn't matter much on a handgun, but with the extra scrutiny present when choosing top 5 handguns, I couldn't put this thing any higher than the 7th spot. The M45 Musoc in the 6th spot tells a very similar story to the 1911. It has a really high damage of 58, but its magazine size of 8 bullets per mag stops it from pushing into the top 5. This is one of my favorite pistols in the game, so trust me, I wish it could have been higher, but the next few handguns are just so good that I can't put the M45 any higher in good faith. Now for the first weapon in the top 5, we have the PMM. This is the perfect example of how a high damage handgun should be designed. This thing has extremely easy to control recoil with a high damage of 61 and a magazine size of 8 bullets. Now, obviously, the mag size is pretty low, but since handguns aren't intended to be primary weapons, the PMM can get away with this. As long as you hit your shots, this weapon will reward you heavily with its stupid high damage. The same thing can be said for my number 4 spot, which is the Q929. This is an extremely underrated handgun compared to the popular choices on Team Rainbow. The Q929 deals a surprising 60 damage, and unlike the PMM, it has a decent mag size of 10 bullets. This obviously isn't a crazy big mag size or anything, but considering the damage, this is huge. You can easily take a gunfight against 2 people with this and come out on top if you have solid aim. Moving to the 3rd spot, we have another fan favorite handgun, that being the Desert Eagle, aka the D50. This pistol has one thing in mind, and that is damage. The Deagle deals a stupid 71 damage, which is the 3rd highest damage out of all the handguns in the game. However, it does have the downside of only having 8 bullets per mag. So if you miss your shots, which is easy with this thing's recoil pattern, you will be punished. This makes the Deagle a high risk, high reward weapon that can be extremely satisfying to use. However, the recoil isn't nearly as bad as people think, and if you spend some time with it, you can learn to control it, unlike the French revolver. And once that's done, the Deagle becomes a pistol that can rival some primary. But due to the high skill gap, I have to place it in the 3rd place spot because new players can't just jump in and start using the Deagle. Now for the 2nd place spot, we have Caveira's pistol. I don't think anyone will be surprised to see this pistol this high on the list. It was designed by Ubisoft to be somewhat of a primary option for Caveira, Obviously, it isn't nearly as strong as it was in its heyday, but it's still an extremely strong firearm. At the time of recording, Corsair's pistol deals a whopping 65 damage, which is insane for a pistol with 13 rounds in a magazine. However, there is one downside. That downside being the high horizontal recoil on this pistol. This basically forces you into using the pistol for close range engagements only, because trying to hit your shots at range will get you killed, which is why I can't put it any higher than the second place spot. As for our first place winner, it does not have that problem. That pistol being the Keratos. It may surprise some of you to see the Keratos being crowned as the best pistol in the game, but I think it wholeheartedly deserves it. This is because the Keratos has damage so high that it can two-shot opponents at any range, which is unheard of from a pistol. 78 damage is just insane for any handgun to have, and considering it has extremely low recoil on top of it, you can't argue against the gun being just insane. It allows you to easily pull off some absolutely nasty plays. The only thing that you could argue is negative about this gun is its low bullets per cylinder stat of 6 bullets, but I think the damage massively makes up for it. And I don't think a pistol's magazine size should be the main stat taken into account. Yes, it is important, but it still isn't the most important stat. Anyways, that wraps up today's video. As always, these videos are strictly my opinion, and if you disagree, feel free to leave your takes in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, I make these content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. Also, if you want to be involved in my future VOD review series, go ahead and join up in the Discord and send your VOD to me. I really want to start getting you guys involved in videos, and so I think this is going to be a great way to do that. Now, if you want to watch another video just like this one of VP popping up on your screen right now where I rank all the LMGs in Rainbow Six Siege. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.